Hi, I'm John Underhill, and welcome back. This is another video for ExoticBlanks.com on their Bandit pen series. So a while back, I was making some videos, and my good friend Dick Singh came up with a great idea for the Bandit pen. He thought adding a custom center band with beads to the center band and the finial would be a way to take your wood pens one step further. So with the help and idea from Dick Singh, this is what we came up with. So here's what we have to work with. I've started with the Bandit Rollerball stainless steel set, and I've already turned the barrels down using some hard maple with some bark inclusions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the center band and we're going to take the finial and we're going to add wood to these parts to match the body of the pen. Now in the finial itself, we're going to take a punch and we're going to hit this rivet and we're going to remove this center band here, and this will allow us to inlay some wood matching the rest of the pen. Okay, so here's how we're going to remove that finial. I took a scrap piece of wood, I drilled a 12.5 millimeter hole, about a ½ inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch deep. What this allows us to do is take that finial and place it in the hole, and it suspends it off the bottom. Make sure your hole is deep enough that this is suspended. Then I'm going to take a hammer and a set punch, and I'm going to place it over the rivet inside, and I'm going to hit it. What that's going to do is remove that center out of that finial, and now we have something that we can build on. So here's the only preparation that you need to think about when you want to do something like this. So a day prior, what I did was I took a scrap piece of maple and I used 2-part epoxy, and I epoxied that to the wood. I let that set for a day, so now I know I've got a nice strong bond. I'm able to hold this in my chuck and work off of the front here, and this will allow me enough material to part a finial and then drill and make a custom center band. Alright, so I have the block of wood in my chuck. I'm only using 2 jaws, and that will ensure that this is properly centered. If I were using 4 jaws and this piece wasn't perfectly square, it wouldn't hold it tight, it would wobble on me. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn this square blank round, and I'm going to make sure that it's round, so then we can work on the diameter for our finial. Now, because we're using such a long piece, you can also slide your tailstock up. That will allow me to support this piece. Now, if I were using a smaller piece, and normally I have just a little bit left over from a blank, I wouldn't need to support that because I'd be working with a smaller piece. But because it protrudes so long, it's a good idea to support that. So now we're going to turn that round. So because we're working with wood and we do have these bark inclusions, we may have to come in with some ultra thin CA, and what that's going to do is just stabilize some of this area. You don't want to go crazy with it. I'm going to use the whip tip on this and just touch over the bark. Even though I'm not going to get down to a lot of this right now, I want to make sure that nothing's flying out on me. So we're just going to lightly saturate some of those areas, let it soak in a little bit, and this stuff is thin like water, so it's going to soak in anywhere that it can. And then we're just going to give it a shot of glue dry. And we're going to let that sit for a little bit. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn down about the width of my carbide cutter, and that will give me just enough room to work for the finial tip. I'm going to periodically stop and check. We're getting real close, so I may now opt to using sandpaper to get that to finished size. That way I don't overturn that. Okay, now that we've got this down, our calipers just fit over it, and there's just a little bit of room. And the reason I want a little bit of room is because I'm going to seal this with CA, and it's going to build up a little thickness. I'm going to take a piece of paper towel. I'm going to turn the lathe on slow. And I like to have the lathe down around 700 or 800 when I do this. And I'm just going to put some CA in a paper towel and just touch over that. Now this is the ultra thin, and it's going to soak in. And I'm going to do this a couple of times, that way I know I have a nice coat, and again, it's going to soak in on you the first couple of times, so I want to build up enough of a finish that it will allow me to use a little bit of moisture when I finish the surface of it without wicking in underneath the finish. So now that it's dry, I could go over with some more sandpaper if I want, but I'm just going to use extra fine steel wool. And we're going to turn the lathe up a little higher. And I'm just going to come in here and lightly burnish the edges. And all that's going to do is knock down any lumps and smooth it all out. We still have a nice seal over that wood, but now it's just all smooth, so it should fit a little easier into our finial. Next, we're going to remove the tailstock, and now we have to face this end. Now I know this is going to fit, and there we have it. We can test fit the end. But I want to face this and give it the contour, a slight tapered contour, and then we'll add our beads. Okay, so here's what we have now. We've got the tool rest turned around on front, and I'm going to take a D-Way parting tool, and this was Dick Singh's idea to add these beads, and he loaned me the tool, and I liked it so well I bought one for myself. And I like it because the flutes run down the top edge and not on the face, so it allows you to get in them tighter, smaller areas. So for the first bead, we're going to start right here on the end, and we're going to try to cut that to where the bead doesn't leave a lip. We want to make sure that the bead ends at the side of this, and that will give us enough room to cut the next one. Alright, so there's our first bead. Worked out very well. And the next one now, I'm going to use that groove left by the first bead and line it up. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, and there we have it. Alright, so now what we're going to do, we're going to just take some, I'm going to take some light 600 grit and just lightly sand around this. I don't want to knock it out of shape. I just want to knock any rough, loose edges off there. That knocks off any ridges. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to place something over the bed, and I'm going to take a rag, a light paper towel. What I do is I roll it up nice and fine, and then smooth out the ends. And I'm going to take some CA glue, and I'm using the ultra thin again, and I'm just going to damp over this while it's spinning lightly. And all I want to do is get some glue in there to protect the wood. I'm going to turn the lathe on very low. Lathes around 800 RPMs. I'm going to put just a couple little drops on here, and I'm going to just go over the top of this and press it in. I'm not going to give it glue dry yet. I want to make sure I get enough in there to soak in. Now I'll hit it with glue dry. I'll do that a couple times, and all we want to do is fill all those edges, give it a nice surface, build up a light layer. There's not going to be any wear and tear on this, so I don't need to build up a huge thickness on it. It's just more decoration. So we want to seal the wood grain and make sure it's protected, and then we'll part that off. All right, now that you've got your glue on there, we're going to want to polish this up a little bit. I'm going to take some light, I'm going to take light pressure with the steel wool, and I'm going to turn it by hand so I don't get too aggressive and remove any of my glue finish, right? I just want to knock down any unevenness. And then I'm going to take just a couple drops of water. I'm going to turn the lathe on a little slow, and I'm going to take my micro mesh and I'm just going to work the top edges. You're not going to get it down in those deep grooves very well. Anything that's going to be touched is going to be on the high end. So that's what we're going to want to make sure that we polish up a little bit and make sure we have an adequate finish on there. And I'm going to take just a drop, just enough to get the micro mesh wet, but I don't want to saturate it, right? So just enough to be wet, and I'm just going to lightly work that surface, and I'm going to go through all 9 grits with just a dab of water. All the water's doing is making sure that the micro mesh doesn't get too hot. I'm not trying to saturate the wood, but because we sealed the side, we shouldn't have to worry about moisture getting underneath of our finish. And as I move to the finer grits, I'll just leave it dry. I won't add any more water. And I'll go over that with some polish. Alright, so here's the fun thing about these beading tools. I've got a little bit larger one now. This is a 1/8 beading tool. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give one ring and in the center. And this will give us just another option for a different look. Alright, so here we have them both parted off, and our finial will just slip in like so on top, and it's just basically whatever look you're going for. I'm going to make a pen for each of these, something a little different. Now, one thing to remember, you're going to press this cap into your pen body during assembly time before you epoxy these into the top. Once you've pressed this in, then mix up some 2-part epoxy, dab it around the hole here, and then just drop this in. And this can all be seen just like we did with the acrylics in the color cast bandit video. And here they are finished, our 2 custom wood beaded finials seated on their pen caps. If you want to see the center bands and how they're constructed, be sure to check out part 2 of this video. And for more ideas customizing your bandit pen, check out the bandit series at exoticblanks.com. I'm John Underhill. Thanks for watching.